The name will be displayed at the top of the screen. Two small boys with blue eyes stare up at a chandelier, declaring the entire room spotless with barely contained excitement. Behind them, a young girl stares at her own hands like they belong to someone else. She wonders quietly if this is really everyday magic. Her fist closes slowly. If this power is real, she thinks, maybe she can actually do something about the mess their lives have become. But that comes later. Right now it is autumn. Leaves drift lazily past the window as pale morning light spills across a small bed where a girl is just beginning to stir. She touches her forehead carefully. The fever is gone. Her breathing is clear. Her stomach is actually growling. She processes all of this for about 2 seconds before flopping triumphantly back onto the pillow with a satisfied sigh. Bad idea. A voice materializes in her head instantly, sharp and completely unimpressed, informing her that flopping back into bed is deeply unladylike. She is to rise properly, make the bed, change her clothes, and present herself with dignity. Kara stares at the ceiling and sighs. Right, that. She sits up and obeys, smoothing the blanket with both hands before pausing to truly consider it. Paper thin, no heating in the room. She had been sleeping with her upper body completely uncovered. Honestly, the fever was the least surprising outcome imaginable. The voice pipes up again, explaining that this is apparently the graceful way to sleep. Kara chooses not to respond to that. Face washing is next. The voice cheerfully informs her that toothbrushes are currently outside the family budget. A rough cloth will do instead. Kara drags it across her teeth with the expression of someone deeply reconsidering their life choices. She is fairly certain it is doing absolutely nothing. The voice offers no comment, which she takes as quiet agreement. She reaches for her coat on the way out, and the voice immediately shouts that coats are not worn indoors. She puts the coat back. She heads downstairs. Her name in this world is Patience. Her actual name is Kaoru. She has been occupying this 10-year-old body for several days now, having gone to sleep after a perfectly ordinary workday, and woken up feverish and half dead in someone else's life entirely. The original Patience still exists in some form, her presence surfacing as a voice only Kaoru can hear, a guide to this unfamiliar world, very vocal and extremely particular. Kaoru reaches the bottom of the stairs and pushes open the dining hall door. Two small boys immediately launch themselves at her. The taller one is Nazius, dark hair, worried eyes. He looks her over carefully and asks whether she is truly recovered, since they heard she had been suffering for days. The smaller one is Henry, blonde, considerably less worried. He wants to know if they can play together today. Their father, William, stands behind them, calling the boys off gently before asking Kaoru the same question, just with more composure and fewer grabbing hands. She smiles and tells him yes. She apologizes for worrying everyone. She pats Nazius on the head when he continues, looking unconvinced. Henry takes this as full confirmation and immediately begins planning their afternoon. Nazius is already pulling Henry back before the younger boy can demand a second lap around the dining hall, reminding him that their sister just got out of bed. Kaoru watches this exchange with something warm, settling quietly in her chest. These two are the reason she is still here. When she first arrived in this body, feverish and confused and utterly lost, all she could do was lie in that cold room and wonder desperately why this had happened. Nazius and Henry had shown up at her bedside every single day without fail, multiple times a day, sharing their own blankets with her despite the biting cold. Two small boys doing the only thing they knew how to do, which was simply refuse to leave her alone. Something about that stubborn, uncomplicated devotion had pulled her back from the edge. She had decided, quietly and firmly, to keep going. She is now running laps around the dining hall with them. Patience's voice arrives like a splash of cold water, informing her that there is absolutely no running in the dining hall. She is the eldest daughter of a Viscount household. She should conduct herself with appropriate composure, not get swept up like a child. Kaoru skids to a halt and stares at nothing for a moment. She is 10 years old. She would like Patience to consider that detail seriously. Still, she has to admit the voice has its uses. Fragments of the original Patience linger in this body like inherited instincts. Her manner of speaking, her posture, her knowledge of this world's customs and social rules. Without that internal guide, Kaoru would have made a catastrophic mistake within the first hour of waking. She finds it less like having a companion and more like having a very strict tutor installed directly into her skull. Henry tugs her hand and announces with great urgency that it has been far too long since they all sat down to eat together. His expression leaves no room for debate. Kaoru looks at him and feels something embarrassingly close to tears threaten the corners of her eyes. She dotes on these children completely and has no intention of apologizing for it. She takes her seat. The maid slides her chair neatly toward the table. Kaoru straightens up and prepares herself mentally. This is her first proper meal since arriving in this world. She has spent every previous day choking down bland sick food in bed. Whatever is about to arrive, she is ready to appreciate it. The food arrives. A heel of bread with the structural integrity of a small rock, ham sliced so thin it is practically a rumor, a bowl of vegetable soup that smells faintly of good intentions, and very little else. Kara stares at it. She picks up the bread and attempts to bite it. Her teeth file a formal complaint. Across the table, Nasius informs Henry that today's ham is noticeably thicker than usual. Henry nods in solemn agreement. Kaoru sets the bread down very carefully. If this is thick, she does not want to know what it normally looks like. There is no possible way this constitutes adequate nutrition for 2 growing boys, so she slides her portion toward them without a word. The boys light up, asking excitedly if they can really have it. She makes a mental note. The real patience had clearly been giving up her own food for them regularly, a selfless habit that was quietly killing her. Kaoru understands the impulse completely. She also understands that a dead sister cannot protect anyone. The Granger family holds the title of Viscount, though it is a title that currently means very little. Ever since William lost his post years ago, the household has been held together by pride and dwindling reserves. The real Patience had worn herself down to nothing trying to keep things afloat. She had caught the same illness that claimed their mother and deteriorated rapidly. Even at her very worst, her thoughts had never wandered far from her brother. She had died alone in her room, still thinking of them. And in that final breath, as though the universe had quietly decided to answer one last wish, Kaoru had. Patience's voice goes still for a moment, then wonders softly whether Kaoru might truly be a divine messenger. Kaoru glances at Henry carefully cutting his bread into precise little pieces and feels her jaw set with quiet determination. She does not know about divine messengers, but she knows that living like this, these children will eventually break beneath the weight of it, and she refuses to let that happen. Breakfast wraps up. Her father catches her just as she is heading toward the library to look into the household finance. He studies her for a moment with tired, careful eyes and asks whether she is truly well after so many days in bed. She brightens immediately, assuring him she feels completely fine, ate well, and has her full energy back. He nods slowly and says that is a genuine relief. Then he mentions, almost as an afterthought, that he has been thinking it is time for her examination. He asks her to come to his study later and leaves before she can ask a single follow-up question. Kaoru stands in the hallway staring after him, repeating the word to herself. Examination. What examination? She detours to her room first, wraps herself in the blanket, and starts thinking. Patience's voice arrives immediately, pointing out that she just made that bed. Kaoru ignores this completely and stares at the ceiling, turning the word over in her. What exactly does that mean in a world she has only been conscious of for a handful of days? She gives up guessing and heads to the study. Her father's door is already open. He gestures to the sofa and settles into his own chair across from her. Kaoru sits down and runs through every possible meaning of the word in her head, each one worse than the last. Her expression tightens. Had he noticed something off about her? Had she slipped up somewhere without realizing it? William looks at her calmly and says he believes she already has some idea of what this is about. Kaoru's heart drops straight through the floor. Then he slides a small, worn book across the table toward her and tells her she is 10 years old now, old enough for magic to manifest. It is time to visit the church and have her ability properly assessed. She stares at the book, then stares back at her father in confusion. Something shifts behind her eyes entirely. She is an otherworlder, a genuine one. If there is any place in existence where that should come with some kind of extraordinary advantage, it is here. She is already imagining it, a rare ability, an exceptional power, a legitimate path to income that could actually lift this household out of poverty and secure her brother's futures properly. She is on her feet before the thought finishes forming. She tells her father they should go to the church immediately, right now, today. William blinks. He had mentioned deciding on a date later. Somehow he finds himself agreeing anyway. Kara changes quickly with the maid's help, steps outside, and climbs into the waiting carriage beside her father. The vehicle is modest but functional. The journey passes in near silence. She glances at William once and considers asking about the dismissal and the family finance. Patience shuts that down before the thought fully formed. Deeply rude. Completely inappropriate. Kaoru concedes the point reluctantly. He would not give a 10-year-old a straight answer about it regardless, and it is not a simple matter to untangle from the outside. Her father notices her tension and tells her gently there is no need to be nervous. She says yes sir at a volume slightly louder than in. The woman accompanying them in the carriage muses that the magic will most likely turn out to be everyday magic. Kaoru looks at her sharply and asks what that means. William explains quietly that everyday magic is the most widespread ability in existence, practical and domestic, useful for the rhythms of daily household life. Noble society largely dismisses it as unremarkable, something servants use, commoner work, not worth serious attention when one can simply hire staff instead. He pauses, then adds that his wife Julian had possessed it, and that despite everything people said about its limitations, she had been deeply respected by everyone who knew her. It had taught him that the power itself matters far less than the hands holding it. He trails off into quieter thoughts after that, the loss still sitting somewhere just beneath the surface. Patience goes unusually still at the mention of their mother. Kaoru turns to the window, her expression settling into something carefully neutral. Ordinary household magic, the least prestigious ability in a world full of extraordinary ones. No fire, no light, no rare gift with obvious profitable applications, and the one person who had truly mastered it is gone. She tells herself firmly that nothing is decided yet. She stares at the passing scenery and reminds herself she is still an otherworlder. That has to count for something. The church rises before them, grand and sun-washed, light pouring through tall windows in long sweeping. Kaoru follows her father inside and forgets to be anxious for a moment because it is genuinely beautiful. Father John greets Gardner warmly and acknowledges Kaoru with a kind patience, murmurs a quiet reminder about posture. Kaoru adjusts automatically. William introduces her as his eldest daughter and requests a formal magic assessment. Father John says he had been thinking it was nearly time and gestures for an assistant to bring forward a low trolley bearing a faintly glowing circle at its center. He asks her to place her hand there. Her hand is trembling when she reaches out. Please, not everyday magic. Anything else. Something rare. Something useful. Something that could actually change things. The circle responds. Light blooms briefly across its surface. Father John smiles and congratulates her. Everyday magic. Kaoru's face goes completely blank. Her father exhales quietly beside her, noting it turned out exactly as he expected. She smiles. It does not reach her eyes. She holds the rest of it together, through sheer willpower alone. The carriage ride home is very quiet. Kaoru stares out the window and tries not to spiral. William tells her not to worry, that she will understand it better as she learns more. She nods and says nothing, because what she is currently thinking is not something she can say out loud in polite company. Nazius and Henry are waiting at the front door. Henry wants to know if she got fire magic, then light magic, then possibly both. Nazius watches her face with considerably more perception than a child his age should possess. Kaoru tells them it is everyday magic. Her voice only wobbles slightly. Nazius says quietly that it is just like their mother then. She confirms it. Henry screws up his face trying to remember what that means, so she explains simply, adjusting a stove, clearing dust, helping with the small, everyday workings of a household. Both boys immediately demand a live demonstration and drag her upstairs before she can draw a single breath of objection. Their room is cluttered and worn. The three of them settle in, and Kaoru produces the book her father lent. The boys examine it with great curiosity. She pages through it carefully. The language presents no obstacle whatsoever, which still strikes her as quietly remarkable. The entry on everyday magic is straightforward and entirely underwhelming. All household tasks performed and completed efficiently, reliable when servants are unavailable, and used wisely to preserve time and energy. She stares at it. It genuinely reads like a pamphlet for a cleaning appliance. She reads further. For the cleaning ability specifically, no tools are required. She must focus her mind clearly, form a vivid and precise image, and offer a sincere prayer to the goddess Astina. Kaoru looks up at the unfamiliar name. Patience explains briefly that Astina is one of the most widely revered deities in this world, and magic here is understood as a divine gift, a genuine one. The manual recommends beginning small, a single piece of furniture, nothing ambitious for. The first attempt, Kaoru stands and picks the desk as her target. She takes a breath, Her brothers watch her with the specific intensity of children who are prepared to be amazed or deeply disappointed with equal enthusiasm. She closes her eyes and tries to focus. The instructions say to form a vivid image. Her mind wanders briefly before settling somewhere unexpected. A memory that does not belong to her. A room full of warmth and light. Two small boys laughing. Patience at the center of it. Happy. The way things had been before everything started falling apart. She opens her eyes and raises her hand. Light ripples outward across every surface in the room simultaneously. Then it stops. Kaoru drops into the nearest chair like her strings have been cut. The dizziness hits immediately. She grips the armrest and blinks at the ceiling while the room spins gently around her. Her brothers have gone completely silent. Then Nazius picks up the manual with shaking hands and reads the relevant passage twice. According to the instructions, the ability should have removed surface dirt only, nothing more. He looks up slowly. Every scratch across the furniture is gone. The worn edges have smoothed themselves back to their original condition. The wallpaper looks freshly hung. The floorboards are gleaming. The entire room looks as though it was furnished yesterday. Henry turns to Kaoru with an expression of pure, staggered disbelief and declares that she is incredible. Kaoru sits in the chair and stares at her own hand. She had aimed for one desk. The effect had spread to every surface in the room without her directing it at all. Old damage simply erased. Years of work quietly undone in a single breath. A slow smile finds its way onto her face. If everyday magic can restore furniture to its original condition, can it do the same for other things? Other surfaces, other structures, other parts of a household that have been quietly deteriorating for years under the weight of poverty and neglect. She looks at her brother. She looks at the restored room around them, and something in her chest settles into a calm and absolute certainty. She will figure this out. She will find every possible application of what she has been given, and she will rebuild this family for them. The next morning, Kaoru stares out from her window and realizes, with some surprise, just how cold it feels even inside the house. She glances down at the garden below and wonders if her magic might work out there as well. She murmurs a small request, asking the room to become clean, and watches with quiet delight as the draft disappears entirely, the chill no longer creeping through the wall. Then something shifts inside her. Her heartbeat quickens, and a wave of dizziness washes over her. She realizes she must have pushed too much magic through herself at once. This kind of spell work, she understands now, drains her considerably when used in large amounts. Breathing hard, she tells herself she needs to pace things out carefully from here, piece by piece, so she doesn't collapse again. Soaked in sweat and grunting in frustration, unwilling to let her body grow cold on top of everything else, a thought strikes her. She could simply use her magic to clean herself instead. The moment she does, she feels refreshed, marveling quietly at how convenient this power truly is, especially for something as simple as personal cleanliness. Still trembling faintly, she reminds herself that in weather this harsh, even a chill from damp sweat could prove dangerous. Glancing toward the curtains, she decides she needs to address the cold properly, and soon. Just as she turns her attention to the task, her younger brother comes rushing toward her, calling her name, with a maid trailing close behind trying to hold him back. Kaoru turns to the maid and asks what the matter is, surprised to find her here as well. Mary apologizes for the interruption, and Nazius explains that Henry had dragged her along by force. The maid speaks up, admitting that earlier, while cleaning the children's room, she encountered something she simply cannot explain. Henry announces proudly that she wouldn't have believed him without proof, which is exactly why he brought her along. Nazius adds that this goes far beyond anything ordinary, everyday magic could accomplish. Kaoru turns to the maid and explains that her everyday magic can indeed restore worn items to look brand new, gesturing toward the curtains and encouraging the maid to feel the fabric for herself, now soft and full again. The maid reaches out and touches the material, visibly shocked, asking if simple household magic is really capable of something like that. Kaoru confirms she had just demonstrated it moments earlier, remarking gently that the fabric had grown thin over the years and surely left the room unbearably cold before. The maid's eyes widen at the realization, and she hurries off without another word, asking Kaoru to wait just a moment. She soon returns carrying an old set of clothes, asking if she could work her magic on these as well, since the fabric has worn dangerously. Kaoru studies the garment, recognizing what appears to be a school uniform, likely passed down from someone before her. She agrees to try, and the moment her magic takes hold, the fabric transforms completely. The maid gasps, mouth falling open, declaring it looks entirely new. Nazius glances at Kaoru, remarking on how genuinely impressive her ability is. She laughs it off, insisting it isn't anything special, teasing him for being such a smooth talker. The maid adds that the uniform now looks fit for a proper young lady, more than suitable for the academy. Kaoru freezes at the mention of the word academy, unable to fully process it. The maid explains matter-of-factly that Kaoru will be enrolling within the month, and preparations must begin properly right away. Kaoru's shock deepens. A month already? Her older brother lets out a small sigh, admitting that while this is certainly good news, he'll miss her terribly once she moves into the dormitory. That detail hits her even harder, the sudden realization that dormitory life awaits her as well, and her brother's expression carries visible sadness. Patience's voice speaks up gently, reminding her that their father had mentioned all this back in the carriage, hadn't he? Kaoru startles, wondering if that's true, admitting she'd had far too much on her mind to register it properly. Just then, she spots her father slipping away down a nearby alley. She calls out to him, hurrying closer, asking him to wait. After questioning him further, she learns the full arrangement. In this kingdom, nobles between the ages of 10 and 16 receive their formal education at the Royal Academy, a prestigious institution situated in the heart of the capital, Romano. Most students commute daily by carriage, typically coming from families who maintain estates within the city itself. Those facing difficulty with regular travel, however, are permitted to live in the dormitories instead. Kaoru realizes their household technically sits within Romano's boundaries, yet they lack the means to maintain horses for daily travel. That single fact, she understands with a sinking feeling, all but guarantees she'll be placed in the dormitories regardless of preference. She wonders, almost desperately, what she's supposed to do now, given that their household finances remain nowhere near stable, and leaving her younger brothers behind feels impossible to consider. She glances at them, then sighs, deciding at that moment to speak up. She tells her father plainly that she doesn't mind skipping the academy altogether, since her only real priority right now is caring for their household first. Everyone freezes, staring at her in confusion. Patience's voice cuts through sharply, demanding to know what on earth she's saying. Kaoru flinches, wondering if she said something truly unacceptable. Her father calls her name, his voice firm, and she answers immediately. His expression hardens as he tells her that attending the Royal Academy is a noble's duty, plain and simple, and that she understands this already, so she shouldn't argue further. She feels a chill at his tone. Patience adds, just as forcefully, that refusing enrollment is simply unthinkable. Her older brother looks at her, confusion mixed with sadness, asking if attending the academy and becoming a court lady wasn't always her dream. Even Henry looks up at her, asking what's wrong. Kaoru's expression goes blank with shock. The maid studies her closely, remarking that she seems utterly exhausted, wondering aloud if she might be falling ill again. Kaoru forces a small laugh, explaining she must have simply overused her magic, admitting she wasn't thinking clearly a moment ago. Looking at her family, she realizes she has no wish to disappoint her brothers. If enrollment truly cannot be avoided, she decides she'll simply have to set things right within the household before the month is over. Over dinner, her mind keeps turning through the problems. First, there's the food shortage, both in quantity and nutrition, painfully inadequate, their daily meals consisting of little more than hard bread and small portions of ham. Then there's the bitter cold settling into every corner of the house, made worse by their inability to afford enough firewood, forcing them to ration what little they have. And this, she realizes grimly, is only the beginning of winter. Gazing out the window, she reflects on how harsh winters truly are in this country. According to Patience, it's currently December, with the calendar and seasons closely mirroring those of her original world. She pulls another layer of clothing around herself, shivering despite her efforts, realizing that even with the drafts sealed, the cold still seeps through fabric worn far too. Her expression falls as she considers that, at this rate, her brothers risk falling ill exactly as she once had. She needs to act before she leaves for the academy, though she genuinely isn't sure where to even begin. As night falls, she sits with Mary in a small room lit by a single flickering candle, working through a pile of She lets out a satisfied sigh, holding up a completed pair of socks, remarking that this finally makes a matching set, and suggesting they take a short break. Mary hesitates. She questions quietly whether this kind of work is truly appropriate for a young lady of her standing. Kaoru laughs it off. She insists it's fine, since she was the one who suggested doing it together in the first place. She realizes a full week has passed since then. Every night, she and Mary continue their sewing. Occasionally, she performs finer repairs in secret, information she gathered from patients directly. She had, somewhat insistently, offered to help Mary using her. She smiles to herself. Mending socks is something her everyday magic handles with ease. It eases Mary's workload considerably. She hands the finished socks over. She tells Mary that should cover everything. Their client will be pleased. As Mary packs them away, a flicker of concern crosses her face. She asks Kaoru if this might look suspicious. There's no visible sign of repair work at all. The socks appear entirely brand new. Kaoru laughs. She suggests Mary simply claim her skills have improved dramatically. The two then turn their attention to a blanket. They agree to finish it that same night. Using old fabric salvaged from the attic, they manage to produce blankets and thick undergarments for the entire household. Kaoru feels a growing resolve. This will help them endure the worst of the cold, at least for now. Food, however, remains the larger issue. She turns to Mary and asks where Eva usually can be found. There's something specific she wants to ask her. Mary, still focused on her sewing, answers that Eva should be in the kitchen. Kaoru points out that whenever she checks, Eva is never actually there. Mary pauses. Her expression darkens slightly. Kaoru asks, carefully, whether Eva might be taking on some kind of side work. Mary flinches, visibly startled. Then she begs Kaoru to keep this from the Viscount. As the truth comes out, Kaoru realizes her suspicion was correct. Their cook has indeed been working outside the household. She spends her free hours at the market, apparently paid in ham rather than proper wages. Normally, she knows servants would be strictly forbidden from taking outside work, yet she cannot bring herself to put a stop to it. The guilt weighs on her too heavily for that. All of this, she understands, stems from the household's dire financial situation. Only 4 servants remain on staff. Each is stretched thin across duties, well outside their usual responsibility. More pressing still, she wonders exactly what her father, as head of the household, has actually been doing all this time. And why was he dismissed from his position in the first place? She can hardly wrap her mind around it. She wonders, quietly, whether Patience genuinely has no answers either. Patience admits that all she knows is that he once worked at the royal palace. Listening to all this, Kaoru realizes she can't fairly judge her father. He was a grown adult who once held real responsibility, and she doesn't know the full circumstance. She can imagine, at least in part, how things must have unfolded. Still, the situation feels urgent enough to be a matter of life and death. She sits quietly, turning her thoughts toward the royal palace. She wonders aloud whether visiting there herself might reveal something useful. Mary, overhearing this, asks if Kaoru still hopes to become a court lady. Kaoru looks at her, briefly confused, then confirms it. Yes, she supposes so. She's still weighing the idea. Mary reassures her that her academy grades will matter most. She's confident Kaoru will manage just fine there. As for the family's lineage, there's no concern whatsoever. After all, the Viscount himself once served as a government official. Kaoru stares in disbelief at this new piece of information. Her eyes widened. A government official? According to Mary, the Granger family has held scholarly standing for generations. Her father, apparently, originally served as a senior official within the Ministry of Education. Kaoru is stunned. What an impressive family history. Patience, though, seems unable to grasp the weight of it. Kaoru listened. She understands that such things are difficult to process at 10 years old. But right now, their father simply remains shut away in his study, stripped of any real dignity. Suddenly, something knocks against her head. Patience scolds her sharply. She calls it disrespectful, reminding her their father is right here. Kaoru apologizes at once. Her heart races. Still, she thinks, with everyone else overwhelmed, she alone seems capable of taking real action. Once the work is finished, she says goodnight to Mary and returns to bed. This much, she thinks, should keep everyone from freezing for now. All that remains is food, protein especially. Judging by the cook situation, food is scarce and hard to come by, which means they'll need to grow something themselves. Beans, perhaps. She isn't sure how far they can get in a single month, but it seems worth attempting. She shivers slightly. Growing beans properly requires real warmth. Patience, hearing the word warm, mentions there's a garden with a greenhouse attached. Kaoru brightens instantly. That's exactly the solution. They should begin first thing in the morning. Come. Morning, she heads to the greenhouse, only to freeze at the sight before her. Patience admits she already suspected as much. It's fallen into complete disrepair. She adds that she once tended it alongside her mother, growing roses even through winter. Kaoru studies the ruined structure. She points out, gently, that she isn't planning to grow roses this time. Patience seems taken aback. She asks why not. Roses are lovely. Kaoru explains, simply that roses aren't edible. Patience remains puzzled until Kaoru asks directly whether she wants her brothers going hungry. Patience grits her teeth and admits, no, of course not. Kaoru asks if they should give it a proper try. She channels her magic into the greenhouse. It transforms instantly, spotless and clean. Opening the door, she notices the air inside has already begun warming. She flips through the pages of her book. The next step involves preparing the soil. This is entirely new territory for her, though she suspects there's likely some form of cultivation magic of it. It feels somewhat different from ordinary cleaning spells. The underlying steps seem similar enough. Focusing her intent, she considers what's needed. She's converting the space into a proper field, clearing away dead growth, shaping the soil. She'll need raised beds as well. She calls out, directing her magic to turn the dead plants into fertilizer, shaping the soil into neat ridges. The moment she speaks, it happens exactly as intended. She studies the result, satisfied. It genuinely resembles a proper field now. Mary steps into the greenhouse and stops short, clearly startled by the transformation. Kaoru greets her warmly. She asks if she managed to gather everything needed. Mary confirms she has. Beans, winter vegetable seedlings, a selection of seeds. Kaoru suggests they begin immediately, rolling up her sleeves, only for Mary to protest firmly. Absolutely not. She refuses to let Kaoru dirty her hands with soil. Kaoru sits back, watching Mary work instead, feeling a little deflated. She asks, half joking, whether Patience wasn't the one who used to grow roses herself. Patience explains that flowers are considered acceptable work for a lady, unlike vegetable. Kaoru scoffs quietly. What an oddly arbitrary distinction. Once Mary finishes planting, she looks over the rows, expressing hope that everything grows safe. Kaoru agrees. Then a thought surfaces, something she recalls reading in the book, Growth Acceleration for Plants. The text warned it was too advanced for beginner. She decides to attempt it regardless. She calls out, urging everything to take root and grow strong. Mary jumps back, startled by the sudden rush of air. She warns Kaoru to be careful, asks if she's all right. Kaoru turns to her, heart pounding, face flushed with excitement. She announces they've actually done it. Now they'll have proper access to protein. She gazes over the transformed garden, quietly thanking her everyday magic. She'd underestimated its potential entirely at first. Mary stands there, stunned, looking around in disbelief. Could growth like this truly come from something as ordinary as household magic? Afterward, Kaoru sits down, admitting to herself just how exhausted she feels. Patience scolds her at once. Straighten her posture. Sitting this way hardly suits a proper noble lady. Kaoru glances around. For now, at least, they seem capable of meeting their basic needs, even if poverty still lingers over everything. Just then, someone knocks at her door. Kaoru glances at the door as a familiar voice announces itself. Wyatt. She straightens up in surprise. It's unusual for the butler to come himself. She invites him in. Once granted permission, he steps inside. He explains that the household is deeply grateful for her help with the recent repairs, the cold weather preparations, and even the vegetable cultivation in the newly restored greenhouse. She laughs it off. It's really nothing. He continues. It seems she also assisted with Mary's outside work. Her expression goes blank. How could he possibly know that? He adds, carefully, that if he may speak freely, the beans and vegetables alone still fall somewhat short. Hasn't she thought so herself? She looks down. Yes, that's true, especially concerning her younger brother's health. She flinches slightly at the thought. Wyatt turns aside and produces several old, weathered pieces, setting them down on the table. She studies them, confused. What could they be? They all look considerably aged. He explains they're antiques that have sat unused in the storage shed for years, damaged but salvageable. If properly restored, they could fetch a solid price. Enough, potentially, to secure some of the meat she's been hoping. Her mouth falls open in shock. Has he already anticipated her answer entirely? Realizing just how calculating he truly is, she rises to her feet. A brilliant idea. She asks him to please proceed. He bows deeply, thanking her. She hesitates a moment before asking whether this new food plan means the cook won't need to keep working outside every single day anymore. She's heard the woman has been pushing herself far too hard. Wyatt assures her he understands. He apologizes for the worry it's caused her and promises to speak with the cook personally. She sighs in relief. "Please do so." He adds, almost offhandedly, that in that case, she should also take this, producing yet another pot. She blinks at the casual addition. It's no trouble at all if it means securing more meat for the house. As she channels her magic into the pots, he watches, visibly stunned. She studies the results. She feels no fatigue at all this time, perhaps growing more accustomed to the spell work. He examines the newly restored pots closely. Is this, too, her everyday magic? She laughs. She simply used a cleaning spell. He studies them further, thanking her sincerely, and asks her to leave the rest in his. In the end, his strategy pays off handsomely, securing a solid sum of money for the household. The meals improve considerably as a result. The cook finally seems able to work at a healthier, more sustainable pace. Watching her brother's happy faces at dinner fills her with genuine joy. They thank her. They remark how delicious everything tastes. The older one wonders aloud how many years it's been since they last had proper ham. Watching them, something tightens in her chest. She realizes she doesn't want to be separated from them. Even knowing she'll be living apart from these children in just a few days, moving into the dormitory, she resolves to come home at least every weekend. The next morning, Wyatt appears with a pouch full of money, setting it down on the table. She stares, stunned. He explains it covers the rental fee for a horse on weekends, limited to a few trips per outing. She looks at him, startled. Did she ask for this? He says no. Was it unnecessary after all? She protests. She'll manage somehow, though she still can't quite believe how much he managed to sell those antiques for. This butler, she thinks, is almost frighteningly capable. January finally arrives, bringing the day of her departure. She shares one last breakfast with her siblings, feeling somewhat more at ease about heading off to the academy now. As she pulls on her coat and stands at the doorway, facing her family, her father rests a hand on her shoulder. Study hard, he tells her. She agrees. Before leaving, she turns once more toward her younger brother. He looks up at her. Will she really come home on weekend? She promises him she will. She pulls both siblings into a tight embrace, her eyes welling up, asking them both to stay well. They both begin to cry. She finally departs by carriage, waving back at them. A quiet resolve settles over her. She shouldn't cry too. It would only make this harder on everyone. Still, she finds herself already looking forward to the weekend. After a short while into the journey, Mary announces that Kaoru should look outside, since the royal palace has come into view. Kaoru glances toward it and freezes, stunned by its sheer size. She exclaims that it's enormous. Mary explains that the Royal Academy sits just beyond the palace ground. Kaoru asks if it's right next door, meaning they must be nearly there. Mary tells her not quite, since the palace grounds themselves stretch on considerably. They soon arrive at the academy. Mary points out the main academy building, and Kaoru stares in disbelief, realizing it rivals the palace itself in scale. She flinches slightly, as Mary mentions the dormitories sit just behind the school building. Then the carriage rolls to a stop unexpectedly, and Kaoru wonders if they've halted partway there. Mary explains it looks like a carriage traffic jam has formed ahead. Peering out the window, Kaoru is startled by the sight of an enormous pile of furniture scattered across the ground, an absolute mountain of luggage. The contrast to her own modest belongings feels almost laughable. Mary, seated beside her, gasps at the sight of 3 particular children nearby, then turns urgently to Kaoru, warning her to behave with the utmost care and respect. Apparently, this year's dormitory will house princes and princesses as well. Kaoru's expression goes blank with shock. She admits she knows very little about the royal family. Patience explains that the kingdom currently has 5 princes and princesses in total, the 3 eldest being 15, 12, and 10 years old respectively, all currently enrolled at the Royal Academy. Kaoru turns to Mary, asking if this arrangement has been happening for years already, given how close the palace sits to the school. Mary admits this is actually the first time anything like this has occurred, which explains why so many distinguished families, one she rarely encounters otherwise, have gathered here as well. Nearby, the royal guards trade quiet gossip, remarking how clean the dormitory rooms apparently are, agreeing it was wise to bring along personal furnishing. Mary adds that judging by the luggage, it seems even upperclassmen are staying in the dorms this term. Kaoru wonders if they've come along simply as part of the royal family's larger entourage. Mary sighs, predicting they'll likely be stuck waiting here for quite some. Kaoru feels a small pang of sadness. She hopes the presence of royalty and noble households won't bring unwanted complications her way. Eventually, the traffic clears. They make their way to the academy, retrieving their room key before stepping inside. Kaoru is pleasantly surprised by the space, a genuinely lovely little studio, cozy and comfortable, and best of all, provided free of charge. Mary, meanwhile, tears up at the sight of such a small room, lamenting how modest it seemed. Kaoru notices the fireplace and remarks how warm it already feels. Mary explains that smaller rooms simply heat faster. Afterward, Mary helps her unpack everything she's brought, though she reluctantly has to head back home soon after, given the mountain of work still waiting there. Left alone, Kaoru notices something unusual overhead. Studying the ceiling, she realizes the light isn't coming from any camp. Patience explains it's a magical lamp powered by a magic stone, a common energy source used throughout Enchanted. Looking closer, Kaoru spots similar stones installed throughout the room. She nearly tears up when Patience mentions that even the toilet uses one, automatically cleaning itself after use. She's genuinely amazed, recalling how miserable using chamber pots back home had always been, wishing quietly they'd had access to something like this themselves. Patience explains that such stones are simply too costly, which is why their household stopped using them long ago. Kaoru recalls, now that she thinks about it, something similar sitting in their dining hall, something she'd always assumed was purely decorative. The midday bell rings right on schedule. Kaoru brightens instantly, realizing it's time for the dining hall. She hurries out of her room, though Patience urges her to maintain proper composure. Kaoru agrees. She slows her pace as she makes her way to the cafeteria. Looking around once she arrives, she overhears two boys nearby, muttering in surprise at how modest the space actually is, guessing they'll simply have to wait until the room assignments finish being sorted out. Kaoru gets in line, realizing she needs to grab a tray and collect her food, much like any ordinary school cafeteria. Someone nearby complains loudly, questioning why they're expected to carry their own trays and wait in such a long queue. A woman nearby sighs, remarking how different this feels from the academy's upperclassmen dining hall. A younger boy standing just behind Kaoru in line mutters that they should simply line up quietly instead of complaining. Kaoru silently agrees. These must be children much like herself, since a lifestyle like this would likely be unthinkable for the truly wealthy nobility. Still, she reminds herself, when in unfamiliar territory, it's best to adapt accordingly. Regardless, the aroma drifting from the food ahead is genuinely incredible. Studying the dishes as she nears the front, she finds herself captivated by how delicious everything looks, rich seasoning mingling with countless ingredients she hasn't encountered since arriving in this world. She murmurs quietly to herself, admitting she's desperate to eat already, her stomach beginning to growl audibly. Patience immediately scolds her. Pull herself together. Absolutely. The chef calls for the next person in line. Kaoru brightens. It's finally her turn. She steps forward eagerly, ready to order. Before she can reach the counter, a boy cuts straight in front of her. She freezes. Her eyes go wide. She can hardly believe it as he casually starts browsing them. Someone behind her protests loudly. He shouldn't cut the line. Everyone's been waiting properly. The curly-haired boy glances back. He explains this is on behalf of Prince Keith. Another boy steps closer. He asks if that means Keith himself. The whole line goes silent in shock. The curly-haired boy's face drains of color. Kaoru turns to see who's speaking. It's Richard, the kingdom's first prince. He explains, evenly, that their father placed them in the dorms so they could stand on their own merit. Indulging a servant's presumption like this, he adds, goes directly against that. The curly-haired boy stammers, trying to explain himself. Whispers spread through the crowd. So it really is the first prince. The student council president really is living in the dorms this year. Kaoru stares at him. She feels an overwhelming pressure radiating outward, stiffening her whole body. Could this be magic too? She wondered. Richard turns and calls for his younger brother. He should apologize to this young lady at once. Kaoru flinches. She insists quickly that it's fine, that he needn't make a scene. The second prince rushes over. He protests to his brother that this is all a misunderstanding. He never gave any such order. That boy acted on his own. Richard snaps back that this exact kind of carelessness is the real problem. Kaoru realizes, with rising dread, that this argument is only escalating further. How long is this going to drag on? Every eye in the room seems fixed on the brothers now. She seizes the moment and slips away quietly. Someone eventually asks where that girl went. By then, Kaoru had already made it outside. Patience scolds her, leaving without even asking the prince's permission. That's reckless. Kaoru brushes it off. She has no interest in getting pulled into royal drama. She's certain nobody there will even remember her face. More importantly, her hard-earned meal is gone now. The cafeteria stays off limits until the chaos settles. She sighs. From now on, she decides she'll avoid royalty entirely, especially the second prince, since he's a fellow first year. She quietly hopes fate keeps them in separate classes. Afterward, she heads to the bathroom for a bath. She turns the tap. Hot water flows out, and she's genuinely surprised. She sinks into the water. Magic stones really are remarkable. The toilet works on its own too. No candles, no matches needed. She finds herself wishing they'd had magic stones back home. She thinks of her brother. She wonders how they're getting along. She dries herself with a quick spell and changes into fresh clothes. Before bed, she decides to review the academy rules. Tomorrow brings the entrance ceremony after all. Reading through the material, she learns students progress through 3 years of lower school, then 3 years of middle school. 6 years total. Each grade splits into sections A, B, and C. It feels remarkably similar to ordinary schooling. Weekdays and weekends match her old world exactly. Then something catches her eye. She sits up straighter. There's a grade skipping system. Students who pass a qualifying exam get exempted from that class going forward. She can hardly believe it. More free time. Maybe more days at home, if she clears enough coursework early. The thought thrills her. She's only allowed the carriage once a week, so Friday or Monday would work best. Skipping ahead sounds worth trying. Just wait a little longer, she tells her brother silently. The next day, the bell rings. Everyone gathers in a massive hall for the entrance ceremony. It wraps up without incident. Afterward, Kaoru gets assigned to class 1A. Her homeroom teacher, Hygen, instructor of mathematics for the lower division, welcomes the new students warmly. He looks forward to the year ahead, he says. First, though, everyone will introduce themselves in turn. The first student to stand is the second prince himself. He explains his specialty lies in fire magic. He's trained extensively with swords too, and plans to join the Knight Corps. Naturally, he'll join the nightclub as well. He declares, proudly, that he welcomes anyone willing to spar with him. Kaoru, seated near the back, feels her stomach drop. Of all things, the same class. She can hardly believe first-year placement runs by family rank. Even a viscount's household barely qualifies for Class A. Everyone around her comes from prestigious lineage. Louise, eldest daughter of the Fendi Count's family. Ralph, second son of a marquis household. Hugo, eldest son of another count's family. Before anyone else gets a real turn, nearly the whole class rushes to declare interest in joining the nightclub alongside the prince. Kaoru watches quietly. She suspects most of them were simply told to do this by their parents, hoping to curry favor with royalty. Even childhood among nobility, she reflects, carries its own particular weight. When the teacher calls for math, Kaoru rises. She introduces herself as Kaoru, eldest daughter of the Granger Viscount family, granted the gift of everyday magic. The room turns toward her. Quiet whispers spread at once. Everyday magic? How unremarkable. She sits back down. She sighs. This is simply how her gift gets received, she thinks, regardless of how useful it actually. Once introductions finish, the teacher moves on to explaining the academy. Each desk holds a class schedule, textbooks, an event calendar, and a club pamphlet. Club participation stays optional, he notes, though strongly encouraged for a fuller academic life. Kaoru flips through the pamphlet and decides, quietly, to skip clubs altogether. The teacher then points everyone toward their schedules. Kaoru studies hers with quiet resolve. He continues, classes begin tomorrow, following this exact structure. Every subject's first class includes a placement test. The announcement sends a ripple of alarm through the room. Students murmur among themselves. A test right away. The teacher calls for quiet. This simply measures current ability, he explained. No penalty for poor results. But students showing sufficient mastery may skip that subject entirely, since attending further would only waste their time. The second prince chimes in. Exactly, he says his older brother skipped multiple subjects the same way. One girl raises her hand. Can a student skip an entire grade? The teacher confirms it's possible, though difficult. All 5 academic subjects plus practical magic. 6 total, all required. She follows up. asking about the other practical courses. Those evaluation standards shift often, he explained, so those get completed separately later on. Kaoru studies her own schedule closely. Skipping a full grade would waive every first-year class entirely. Could that mean staying home for a whole year? The thought thrills her. She flips through her textbooks next. Math looks manageable, roughly a 10-year-old's level. The other subjects look much harder, packed with unfamiliar knowledge from this. Patience speaks up. She's read extensively through their family's home library over the years. She offers to help however she can. Kaoru's eyes light up with excitement. Exactly what she had expected, she says, from a proper scholarly family. Patience admits magic theory is the one subject she doesn't know. Kaoru glances at the book. Then she'll just do her best with that one, she decides. The teacher announces the session's over. He hopes everyone enjoys a wonderful academic life, starting tomorrow. As class ends, everyone turns toward the prince and Lady Lewis. Kaoru packs up her books. Time to head back and study hard. On her way out, the second prince's eyes drift toward her. She walks past a cluster of students, already looking uneasy about the coming test. They're chattering about their carriage clubs and similar things. Then she overhears a girl's voice nearby. She can't believe even a commoner like her managed to squeeze in. Kaoru glances inside the room. This must be Class C. One girl adds that she will need to work hard to properly use everyday magic. Another agrees, saying the same. Kaoru tells herself she'll need to give her best effort too. Back at her dormitory, she pulls out her books. Reading through, she realizes magic theory looks manageable enough by memorizing the textbook. Thank goodness for that, she thinks. The primary magic types are fire, water, earth, wind, life, physical enhancement, and everyday. Everyday feels like an odd one out somehow. The chance required for casting also runs surprisingly long. She's always just muttering something simple, like becoming clean. Then it clicks. Once a caster reaches an advanced level, the chant can be shortened. But large-scale magic still succeeds more reliably with a full incantation. Her mood dips slightly. Maybe she's been doing this wrong all along. Well, that's a worry for later, she decides. What remains is practical magic. That's likely the class where she'll actually cast spells in front of others. Most practical subjects run one period, but practical magic alone takes 2. Combined with theory, that's 4 magic-related classes total. This academy clearly prioritizes magical education above all else. Everyone in class carried such powerful-looking magic. Is raw bloodline really the deciding factor for strength, she wondered. She looks down at her own hand. Everyday magic clearly ranks lower next to the others, and that's exactly what got her through admission. She steals her expression. That's not the real question here. She just needs to try. For her brothers. Sake, if nothing else. The next day, everyone gathers for testing, then moves on to class. Kaoru watches the boys nearby, sensing their dread runs even deeper than her. The teacher instructs everyone to pair up, boys extending the invitation. The second prince sighs, resigned, and walks over to Lady Lewis, asking for a dance. She takes his hand. The teacher calls out, urging everyone to speak up quickly, or she'll have the remaining boys dance with each other instead. Kaoru glances around, unsure what to do. She's never learned this kind of dance. Then a curly-haired boy extends his hand toward her. She startles, realizing it's Hugo, asking if she'd like to dance with him. She agrees. The teacher explains that a diagram will appear on the floor through magic, and everyone should follow its steps. Kaoru concentrates, wondering privately why he chose her, since she's avoided attention all along. Still, he leads well, and thanks to that, she manages to keep pace. She studies him, realizing he comes from a count's family, likely trained by a private dance tutor at some. The teacher announces they've passed. She thanks him. As he turns to leave, he mentions, almost offhandedly, that this settles whatever debt he owed her. Her eyes widened in surprise. Meanwhile, the prince thanks his own partner nearby. Kaoru watches, smiling faintly, thinking he has a genuinely sweet side after all. The bell rings, signaling their return to the classroom. The teacher announces the test results are ready to be returned. The prince walks up first, scoffing with obvious pride as he goes through his own papers one by one, clearly confident in what he'll find. He keeps scoffing, satisfied all the way through, until he reaches a single paper that stops him cold. Kaoru, meanwhile, feels her stomach tighten as her own papers come back one by one, murmuring quietly to herself with each result. Then the prince cries out over that one particular subject. Classics of all things. What's even the point of studying that? The room stirs in shock. Apparently, Patience is the only student who passed the classics. The prince turns toward her, stunned. Kaoru glances at the score herself, marveling. Just as expected of Patience, a perfect score. Everyone reacts with disbelief. A perfect score. Who exactly is this girl? She's simply from the Granger Viscount family. The prince turns toward her directly, remarking that she passed an impressive number of subjects. Patience laughs it off, insisting it's nothing special, that Lewis did just as well. Lewis counters from nearby, insisting she's still far behind, unable to keep pace with Patience at all. She wonders aloud whether Patience will pass practical magic too, noting that everyday magic's real strength depends entirely on how it's used. Patience scoffs internally, sensing something like a subtle threat buried in the comment. Meanwhile, the prince grumbles in frustration, glancing toward Kaoru. She panics inwardly, realizing she's drawn far too much attention already. She's never been comfortable in situations like this. She slips away quietly afterward, gathering her resolve. At least she's cleared every written subject now. Only one test remains. The next day arrives, and the teacher announces they'll begin practical math. Kaoru swallows hard, clasping her hands together, silently hoping for the best. As the test starts, the first person up is none other than the second. He uses fireball magic. Everyone is shocked by his attack skill. Kaoru, watching, is flustered too. She can't believe it's real fire magic. It's her first time seeing it. When it's done, the teacher shouts, calling everyone in class 1A to gather up. One instructor announces they will now begin the magic practicum exam. Each student will go to the instructor for their specialized type of magic and demonstrate a basic spell. Everyone brightens and heads to their respective professor. Kaoru glances around, gulping, wondering if she'll be okay. Then the teacher announces that those proficient in everyday magic should come over. Only 3 girls step forward. The teacher looks at them with a warm smile, introducing herself as Angela, the instructor in charge of everyday magic. She tells them not to be discouraged. If they master everyday magic, they can do anything. She asks them to stand tall and proud. Kaoru chuckles at that. Angela explains the exam will evaluate their cleaning ability. Perhaps they don't have much experience with it, but it's a basic spell. It's time for the first girl. Kaoru watches, thinking privately that this is going to be a long, patient wait. When her own turn finally comes, she decides she'll just do it the way she normally does. Everyone is shocked, even the teacher. Angela stares at the slate, wondering why it's so clean. She covers her mouth in shock, then calls for another instructor to come over. Kaoru flinches. What's wrong? Did her magic fail? Then the teacher announces there's nothing left to teach her. They'll issue her a certificate of completion for the magic practicum course. Kaoru is stunned. Her eyes go wide. The teacher adds that she's now exempt from this class until graduation. The other students mutter in confusion, wondering what that even. Kaoru feels a little gloomy, thinking maybe her magic really is just strange. She decides to stay quietly in the corner. Even the teacher is shocked, unable to believe everyday magic could do something like this. Angela adds that honestly, this goes far beyond simple cleaning. The second prince, overhearing, is stunned, his mouth dropping open. He can't believe she got a full completion. Can this even happen for a first year? He'd only managed to skip ahead in 5 subjects, yet this girl skipped even more than him and earned a certificate of completion on top of it. Kaoru can feel his gaze on her. She pretends not to notice, since she doesn't want to get involved. Friday after school, she ends up in the teacher's office. The teacher tells her she passed not only the 6 exams required to skip a grade, but every single subject exam. They officially approve her achievement and exempt her from all first-year classes. Her eyes sparkle. She did it. She sighs in relief, realizing this means she can stay home all year long. Then the teacher mentions that starting next week, she'll attend classes with Class 2A. She freezes in confusion. Her expression goes blank. The teacher looks equally confused until it clicks for her. Being exempt from classes means jumping straight to the next class. Nothing about her workload actually changes. She shouts, asking when the next exam is. If she just keeps skipping grades, she could graduate within the year. The teacher tells her it will be at the end of a spring term in June, but warns her she can only skip 1 grade per year. She's shocked. She tells him then she'll just stay a first year and only take the exemption. He scolds her, telling her not to say something so foolish. The grade skipping system isn't for taking a vacation, it's for developing her ability. If she finishes early, she can go on to university. There's no way they'd approve exempting her from an entire year. It hits her like a thunderclap. She can't believe it. Her dream just scattered. Gloomily, she asks for the Class 2A schedule. He hands it over, telling her it's identical to Class 1A's, so there won't be issues when students skip individual subjects. She has no idea how difficult it would be under a credit system like the senior division youth. She asks whether classes B and C work the same way. He tells her no, only Class A students can skip grade. From second year onward, classes are divided strictly by grade rather than family status. The complaints from parents are annoying, but that's simply how it works. She realizes even nobles can only rely on family status during the first year. After that, it's entirely merit-based. Just then, a new man enters the room, asking if she's the famous student everyone's been talking about. He's the junior division Class 2A homeroom teacher, Mr. Kepner. She turns toward him as her old homeroom teacher introduces him as her new instructor starting next week. The old man chuckles, telling her she's become quite the topic in the staff. She bows and introduces herself. He asks if she's the Viscount's daughter, then adds that if she ever has trouble, she should come talk to him without hesitation. He turns away, handing her the second-year text. Back at her dorm, she collapses to the ground, realizing what a complete fool she's been. Just because she skipped a grade doesn't mean she can skip class. On top of that, grade skipping is limited to once a year, and she should have confirmed that beforehand. This whole week, what was it even for? She sighs, thinking about marriage even for a woman in this world. Girls tend to marry young here, with the ideal age falling between 16 and 20, so pursuing higher education isn't common. Not that it mattered. She doesn't have money for university anyway, and even if she did, she'd rather prioritize her younger brothers. Feeling a little blue, she reminds herself that university aside, she genuinely wants to graduate early. She'll ask the instructor next time whether subjects she's already completed stay fully exempt. She wants to make good use of her free time, collecting as many certificates of completion as possible and graduating even a little sooner. Determined, she silently asks her brothers to wait for her, promising she'll do her best. She stretches her arms and stands up. No more sitting around depressed. Tomorrow, Saturday, she gets to see them. She opens her book. After finishing dinner, she walks back toward her dorm, thinking she wants her brothers to try this food too. Looking at her first-year textbooks, she realizes she won't need them anymore and decides to bring them home for Nazius and Henry. Reflecting on this first week away from home, she realizes just how much they still need. Magic stones, first of all, since everyone requires them. Swords and horses too, since the boys' physical education covers swordsmanship and horsemanship, and the noble sons are already comfortable handling both. A musical instrument as well, something like a piano, since both she and Patience can play a little and could teach them. But they don't have a piano at home anymore. Patience reminds her they sold it. They still have a keyboard model, but it doesn't make sound. Kaoru thinks it might be worth getting a real one. Beyond that, there's the magic tutor testing at the church, private tutoring, art supplies for art. She needs money for all of it. She groans, realizing she can't manage this on pocket money alone. Maybe she'll have to talk to Wyatt, since it's for her brother's sake after all. She wants to prepare as much as possible for them. The carriage rolls to a stop in front of her house, and she jumps down before it fully settled. Patience scolds her, telling her to mind her manners. Then her little brother comes running. She looks at him with pure affection and pulls both boys into a hug, asking if they've been doing well. They shout yes in unison. Henry tells her they should play together. Nazius announces that lunch comes first. Henry whines that they should eat lunch together instead. She hugs them back, admitting quietly to herself that she doesn't want to be apart from them. When the food is served, she's genuinely surprised. There's meat. There are vegetables. The meals have clearly improved. She left the greenhouse in George's care, didn't she? She should check on it later, just in case. She wants to take on some side work too. But first, more than anything, she needs some healing time with her little angels. Afterward, she's called to her father's study. William tells her a letter arrived from the academy. She skipped a grade. She worked hard, and he's proud of her. She half listens, mostly wanting to hurry back to the boys' room. Patience scolds her for the rudeness. She stands, thanks her father, and promises to keep doing her best. But he tells her to wait. They aren't finished. He produces a letter. Patience recognizes the emblem immediately and shouts that it's the crest of the royal family. Kaoru freezes in shock. Her mind races. Did the second prince hold a grudge against her? Is the royal family sending some kind of summon? She's trembling. Her father asks if she's all right. She tells him yes and asks to be excused. He tells her the letter is from Queen Victoria. Her soul nearly leaves her body. She's doomed. Her father says he was surprised too. The queen has requested that Kaoru be appointed as the princess's lady's maid. Kaoru is confused. Her father's eyes light up, calling it an incredibly honorable offer. He adds that he'd heard the royal family members had also moved into the dormitory this year, and that His Majesty believes in a strict education. Kaoru is baffled. Why is he speaking so respectfully of the king when he was the one who dismissed him from his position? More importantly, she sighs and asks her father what exactly a lady's maid even is. He explains it means someone who personally attends the princess. She grows frustrated. That explains nothing. Patience admits she doesn't know either. She asks her father how it's different from a court lady or an ordinary maid. He tells her a court lady is a civil servant who works in the royal palace. A maid is simply a servant, and a lady's maid is a noble who personally serves a member of the royal family. She considers it and realizes she really doesn't want to do this. She scoffs, pointing out that she and the princess aren't even in the same group. Her father assures her that won't matter, since her close companions are moving with her. Both prince's companions moved into the dormitory as well, though it seems the princess's own companion declined. Kaoru wants to decline too, but her father looks thrilled, calling it a tremendous honor. She realizes he has zero intention of letting her refuse. She asks if she could at least have some time to think it over, but looking at his devastated expression, she understands. This is too great an honor to turn down. She doesn't really get it. If there's anyone she could consult, now would be the time. Just as she reaches home, Wyatt is already waiting for her. He bows and asks if she needs something. She looks at him in confusion, wondering if he was expecting her. She sits down and explains everything, admitting she really doesn't think she's suited for the role. Is there truly no way to decline being the princess's lady's maid? He tells her that refusing a request from the queen would likely be seen as a serious lack of consideration. Patience agrees loudly. Kaoru is startled. Is it really like that? She asks whether there's any compensation for the role. Patience is scandalized, asking what she means by that. Wyatt explains that as befits such an honor, the family would likely receive clothing and personal items. She doesn't quite follow, muttering that clothes from the royal family probably aren't easy to sell. Patience tells her absolutely not. Kaoru turns to Wyatt and asks him to teach her something, since she's clearly ignorant of how the world works. She wants magic stones, horses, a piano for her brothers, and a tutor. Is becoming a lady's maid really necessary for any of that? He looks at her steadily and tells her that if she truly cares for her younger brothers, she should accept. Fulfilling the role admirably will brighten their future. He bows, telling her this is simply what he believes. With a quiet, resigned expression, she tells him she understands. She'll accept the appointment. Sunday night, in front of the student dormitory, deluxe room number 1. She's just delivered her letter of greeting to the princess's room and been summoned inside right away. She recalls Mary's words, thinking that might apply to a real noble lady, but whatever, she can handle it. Where there's a will, there's a way. Maybe the princess will turn out to be easy to get along with. She knocks on the door, smiling. The maid opens it and tells her to please enter, since the princess is waiting. The princess is enjoying her tea when she suddenly turns and glares at Kaoru with hard, unfriendly eye. Kaoru's stomach drops. This, she realizes, might really be over for her before it's even begun. And that concludes the video. If you want another part, leave a like and subscribe. Comment antique below, and we'll get it done ASAP.